You wake up and reach out without thinking. You grab your phone before getting out of bed, before feeling your body, before remembering who you are. Your first gesture of the day is to give away your attention. And the worst part is that this already feels normal. There's no more silence, only notifications, only stimuli, only endless calls, coming from outside and from within. But when did this become normal? You weren't born like this. You weren't born impatient, anxious, disconnected from yourself. This was taught, this was cultivated, and not by accident. Because while you chase the next hit of pleasure, someone is profiting from your escape. While you seek distraction, someone is designing your prison. What brings you pleasure might also be what keeps you obedient. And no, this isn't paranoia, it's programming. You think you choose what you see, but what shows up on your screen isn't neutral. It's chosen for you. Every color, every sound, every word, everything is calibrated to keep you hooked. Hooked to the feeling that you need to keep scrolling, keep clicking, keep running from yourself. And the more you run, the further you move from the only thing they fear, your awareness. Have you noticed how hard it is to simply stop? To be silent, to just sit with your own thoughts? That's not a coincidence. It's a symptom of an addiction that doesn't look like an addiction. Because it doesn't hurt on the outside, it leaves no marks on your body, but it destroys you from within, slowly, silently, with your permission. They didn't need to beat you or threaten you. They just had to figure out what you liked and offer it to you in excess until you became dependent, until pleasure stopped being a choice and became a need. This is the new form of control, not through pain, but through pleasure. And it wasn't George Orwell who predicted this. It was Aldous Huxley. He understood early on that the future wouldn't be built on violent oppression. It would be built on entertainment, on constant stimuli, on comfort, and with that, on voluntary surrender. You wouldn't need to fight for your freedom, because you'd believe you already had it. But the truth is, the most effective prison is the one you can't see. That's what this video is about how the system turned pleasure into obedience, entertainment into anesthesia, choices into illusion, and freedom into addiction. You're not here by accident. Some part of you knows something is wrong. Some part of you is trying to wake up, and maybe, just maybe, this is the beginning of seeing that what holds you back isn't a chain. It's a habit, it's a stimulus, it's a pleasure you no longer know how to refuse. Get ready, because what comes next will show you why entertainment became the new weapon and why you'll never look at your pleasure the same way again. They told you that you are free, that you can choose what to watch, what to listen to, what to consume, but what they never told you is that freedom in this game was just a frame, the perfect illusion to hide the real structure, a system that doesn't offer you choices but leads you through them. That doesn't liberate you, it addicts you. On the surface, there is an avalanche of options. Millions of videos, songs, apps, games, genres, platforms, an infinite menu to feed your sense of control. But that menu was created by someone, and the main dishes were designed based on what captures your attention, not what frees your consciousness. This isn't accidental, this is engineering. A silent, precise engineering that studies your fears, your desires, your weaknesses, and feeds on them. Every click you make becomes data. Every pause, every swipe of your finger, every 2-second hesitation, everything is interpreted by algorithms that not only know you, but predict you. They know what you will like before you know it yourself, and they know how to keep you there, watching, craving, needing. Because the most valuable currency of the digital age is not money, it's your attention. And what do they do with it? They turn it into profit. They turn it into statistics. They turn it into a product. You are not choosing. You are being shaped. It's not you who navigates. It's you who is being navigated. This is the new architecture of domination, based on distraction, reward, and saturation. The system doesn't want you to turn off. It doesn't want you to think. It wants you to keep going, keep watching, keep scrolling, keep getting lost. Because every second of distraction is one less second of questioning. They don't want you to stop and think, what am I doing with my life? They want you to think, what's the next video? Freedom exists on paper. In practice, it has become a theater where all paths seem to be yours, but all lead to the same place. More time spent, more data collected, more control established. Entertainment has become the most efficient facade of surveillance. Not the oppressive surveillance of cameras and soldiers, but passive, comfortable, addictive surveillance, disguised as freedom. And while you believe you are in command, they are profiting. They are in control. They are the future, because you are still trapped in the present they created for you. What they call freedom of choice is just the well-crafted programming of your next distraction. George Orwell feared a world where books would be banned, where thoughts would be policed, where pain would be the ultimate tool of control. But Aldous Huxley saw something more subtle, more perverse. A world where no one would need to ban anything, because no one would care to know. Where no one would need to watch, because everyone would be too busy being distracted. This is the essence of domination through pleasure. You no longer need chains when the body wants to stay where it is. When the mind learns to seek comfort above truth. When pleasure becomes the most effective anesthetic of consciousness. Huxley wrote about drugs that kept people docile, about parties that replaced reflection, about entertainment that made questioning obsolete. This wasn't fiction. It was a prediction now unfolding on glowing screens, in endless playlists, in series that never end. The future didn't arrive with sirens, it arrived with notifications, and pleasure became protocol. Everything is designed to please you, to keep you calm, distracted, just satisfied enough not to look around and notice the emptiness growing inside. Modern entertainment doesn't free you from reality, it shields you from facing it, and in the process, it puts you to sleep. You're no longer living between extremes of pain and genuine joy. You're operating within a safe zone of artificial excitement, an endless sequence of tiny dopamine spikes. But the more you get used to this stimulation, the less you can tolerate silence, introspection, doubt, the necessary emptiness of awareness. Pleasure became obedience because it conditions you to avoid discomfort, to avoid stillness, to avoid anything that demands depth. And so, the system no longer needs to force you. It only needs to offer what you've been trained to desire, until desiring anything outside of that seems pointless, or worse, dangerous. They don't want you to suffer. They want you to smile. They want you to have fun. They want you to laugh while the world falls apart, because a distracted people don't protest. An entertained people don't resist. A satisfied people don't wake up. This is the revolution of pleasure. It's not loud. It's anesthetic. And that's exactly why it's so effective, because you don't even realize you're being tamed, because what now imprisons you also pleases you. Nothing you consume today was made just to entertain you. It was designed, calculated, and fine-tuned to trigger a specific chemical reaction in your brain. And that reaction has a name: dopamine. It's the currency of pleasure, the fuel of repetition, the invisible link between what you see and what you feel. But what should have been just a sensation became a strategy. It all started when software engineers stopped thinking about functionality and began studying human behavior. Psychology stopped being a science of understanding and became a tool for manipulation. Sounds were tuned, cuts were edited, and reward timings were calibrated with millisecond precision. Because if your brain reacts with excitement, you stay. And if you stay, they win. Social networks aren't networks, they're laboratories. Every scroll, every like, every click is a mini experiment. The system learns what makes you come back, what makes you want more, and then it gives it to you, not because you need it, but because your mind has learned to confuse repetition with comfort. Pop music is no longer art. It's sound-based algorithm, built to grab your attention in the first 7 seconds. The structure is the same. The loop is the same. The beat is the same. Because it works. Because it triggers the pleasure cycle. And pleasure triggers dependence. The same goes for videos, for series, for games. They're sculpted around neurological patterns that stimulate arousal and avoid satisfaction. You never feel complete, just stimulated enough to keep going. And so your attention becomes hostage to the next dose, not of heroin, but of clicks, of sounds, of lights. Dopamine, which once was an ally for survival, is now a Trojan horse. It entered through the gate of pleasure and conquered the fortress of discernment. It rewards you, but it also imprisons you. It gives you the pleasure of now at the cost of the clarity of later. And it's no accident. It's by design. Because the more you depend on these stimuli, the less you can tolerate the real world. The world that is slow, imperfect, demanding. Reality becomes unbearable, introspection, painful. And the only solution your brain finds is to go back to the stimulus. Repeat the cycle, feed the machine. They don't just want your attention, they want your chemistry, because whoever controls your dopamine controls you. You think you're just watching a movie, listening to a song, laughing at a meme. But while your attention is locked on the plot, the faces, the dialogue, something more subtle is being installed. Silently, repeatedly, images accumulate, phrases repeat, gestures, colors, symbols. None of it is random. All of it speaks to a part of you that isn't reasoning. It's absorbing. The collective unconscious has always been shaped by myths, stories, rituals. But now, these rituals don't happen in temples or town squares. They happen on TikTok, in viral series, in the endless scroll you go through before bed. And like any effective ritual, they don't ask for permission. They embed through repetition, through familiarity, through the appearance of normality. You see the same symbol dozens of times. A triangle, an eye, an inverted cross, a gesture. At first, it catches your attention. Then it goes unnoticed. Eventually, it becomes part of the background. But even when you stop noticing, it's still there, reinforcing ideas, reinforcing roles, reinforcing who rules and who obeys. The narratives follow the same blueprint. The hero is always alone. Community is weak. Love is disposable. Violence is glamorized. Suffering is trivialized. Morality is ambiguous. The ending is cynical. All of this is consumed on a massive scale in ways that seem harmless. But the more you consume it, the more your inner world starts to mirror that pattern. You start believing that life is like that. A cycle of desires, betrayals, false victories, and instant pleasures. You begin to feel like resistance is pointless, that being critical is annoying, that questioning is paranoia. Because entertainment teaches without looking like it's teaching. It programs without you feeling it. It manufactures consensus and calls it culture. The result is a generation that communicates through memes, that repeats slogans without knowing where they came from, that defends ideas planted by scripts, not by reflection. The collective unconscious is being hacked, and no one notices, because the hacker doesn't need to hide the code when it's fun enough to be consumed. This is modern pedagogy, silent, symbolic, invisible. It doesn't instruct, it insinuates. And the more you're exposed to it, the less you question what's truly yours and what's been installed. You don't see the chains. But that doesn't mean you're free. It only means someone learned how to make them pretty enough for you to wear them willingly. The old form of oppression was made of screams, prohibitions, punishments. It was visible, it was concrete. But it failed in one crucial way. It provoked resistance. Loud pain at some point always sparks an urge to escape. A flicker of rebellion, but comfort doesn't. Comfort is silent, it doesn't threaten, it invites, it envelops, and little by little, it replaces your ability to tolerate discomfort with a constant dependence on immediate relief. The system understood this. It learned that to dominate, it no longer needed to punish. It only needed to offer. Offer pleasure, distraction, convenience, in precise daily doses, until freedom stopped feeling like a necessity and started to seem like a burden. Today, no one has to force you to obey. You adapt yourself, you mold yourself, you surrender, because resisting comes at a cost, losing access to your comforts, and no one wants to give those up. Comfort has become refuge. It has become identity. It has become a shield against the weight of the real world, against the pain of thinking, choosing, acting. But any refuge that becomes permanent becomes a cell. You live in a cell with no walls, no bars, no alarms. A cell where you're fed with entertainment, distraction, and dopamine, where discomfort is avoided at all costs, and where the only thing truly demanded of you is your attention, continuous, submissive, numbed. Huxley saw this with disturbing clarity. He didn't predict a regime that would erase the truth. He predicted a world where truth would get lost in a sea of distractions, where no one would seek it anymore because they'd be too busy. Busy with games, with shows, with updates, with tiny pleasures that demand almost nothing, but cost almost everything. And what do they cost? Your awareness, your depth, your capacity to endure silence and see what lies beneath the surface. They cost the only thing that could threaten the system, your awakening. The modern prison doesn't need to lock you up. It only needs you to want to stay, to fear the void, to fear not having something to watch, to hear, to consume. And as long as that fear exists, control remains untouched, even if no one is watching you. Because now, it's no longer about repression, it's about surrender. Not forced, but voluntary. And almost always, unconscious. Distraction once seemed harmless, an escape, a quick relief, something to fill the time between work and sleep. But now it has taken over everything, and you feel the effects, even if you can't name them, the anxiety that never fades, the sense of always being behind, even with nowhere to go, the struggle to focus, to breathe deeply, to simply be present. This isn't a personal failure. It's the reflection of a system that trains your mind to live in fragments. The human mind wasn't built to handle continuous stimulation. It needs silence, pause, time between things. But that time has been erased, replaced by endless feeds, instant replies, notifications that cut through every moment of contemplation. The result isn't just mental, it's existential. You begin to lose touch with what's real, with what is yours, because your identity starts to be shaped by what you consume, not by what you choose. And the cruelest part is that, in the middle of this sensory chaos, you believe you're living, but you're merely reacting to every stimulus, every trend, every new piece of content. Your life becomes a sequence of impulses, your attention a minefield, and your consciousness a muffled echo at the back of your mind. It's no longer about liking being online, it's about not knowing how to be offline, not knowing how to deal with boredom, with waiting, with time that doesn't offer immediate reward. Silence has become uncomfortable, solitude unbearable, and every attempt at disconnection feels like a threat to your very existence. But that is the price of distraction. It doesn't take from you all at once. It takes little by little. First, your ability to focus, then your emotional depth, then your autonomy, until all that's left is a restless body, a scattered mind, and an identity dissolving with each new scroll. Distraction has become the norm, addiction, a lifestyle, and any attempt to return to clarity feels outdated, extreme, or impossible. Because distraction shapes more than your taste. It reshapes the structure of your perception. And when it installs itself at that level, it's no longer entertainment. It's domination. You think you're just having fun, but deep down you're being emptied, not out of malice, but by design, because a distracted mind doesn't resist, doesn't confront, doesn't change. It only consumes and adapts, until one day it no longer remembers what it means to be free. It didn't take violence, there was no censorship, no tanks in the streets, no doors kicked in at dawn. This new form of control didn't come by force. It arrived slowly, offering exactly what you wanted: comfort, stimulation, convenience, and above all, pleasure. They understood something most still haven't. The shortest path to obedience is entertainment. Not the kind that delights, the kind that numbs, not the kind that informs, the kind that addicts. Because once they control your pleasure, they don't need to control anything else. They don't have to tell you what to think, just keep you busy enough that you never think for yourself again. You don't see the collapse. Because it's not loud, it's subtle, an internal shutdown, an erosion of will, a slow forgetting of your own depth. While you chase the next distraction, the system grows stronger. It feeds not despite your attention, but because of it. Every click, every scroll, every just one more episode is a vote. An unconscious vote for a world where pleasure replaces freedom. They didn't hide the truth. They just taught you to stop looking for it. And now, you're here, at the end of this video, but maybe at the beginning of something bigger, of an uncomfortable yet necessary question. Who would you be without this addiction? What would you feel if you had to inhabit the silence you've been avoiding? What would you discover if you stopped running? Brave New World didn't come with chains. It came with promises, with sparkle, with convenience, and with a sentence: you don't need to resist, you just need to keep enjoying it. But the real question is this: do you still enjoy it because you want to, or because you've forgotten how to want anything else? If this video made you think, if something here confronted you, touched you, reflected something back at you, leave a like. It shows there are still people who want to see beyond what they're being shown. And drop a comment below. Is all of this just a coincidence, or was this exactly what they wanted?